One. What's going on, everybody? My name is Jack Kelly, host of Point to the Spot, a US-based podcast focused on the world of football. Joining me today, as always, on the show is my entirely bonkers friend, Reed Hammond. Reed, how are you?
Oh yeah, I'm all right. I lived up to the moniker last night.
And once again, joining the show is a future presidential candidate. Ball for Prez 2020. I can't stand Donald Trump's America. Andrew Ball. Andrew, how are you?
I'm good. Someone has to represent the non-Racine contingent on this show.
Well, boys, today's a little bit of a different episode as we are all remote. So if we ensue any audio issues or connection issues, we do apologize for that ahead of time. I have been dragged rudely away on my vacation as I was away from the Point to the Spot studios this weekend and have been called in to work remotely. With that in mind, let's actually do some work and talk about the football. We'll get right to it with God's team, starting the weekend off strongly. Of course, I watched this game about 6 hours after the fact, as the magic of DVR allowed me to. Arsenal played host to Hull City, a very fine-formed Hull City at the Emirates this weekend. Of course, Alexis Sanchez did score twice to secure a 2-0 victory over the Tigers. Hull did look strong, though. There was a lot of question asking of the Arsenal backline from the Tigers in the second half, especially late on. Obviously, one good break did do him in as Klukas decided to play goalkeeper, save the ball with his arm, and get himself sent off. And another clinical Alexis Sanchez penalty made it 2-0 to the Gunners.
You know who else had some fun with his arm, Jack? One Alexis Sanchez on that first goal.
Oh, it was beautiful. You see, my thing with it was a little bit of like ball to hand, though. You know what I mean?
It was 1,000,000% a handball and should not have been a goal.
I mean, what did you want him to do, though?
No, I'm not saying it's Alexis's fault. I'm saying the linesman should have spotted it and waved the goal off.
Yeah, I mean, there has been some discrepancies, but the representative from the FA that loves to do the TV broadcasting did say that he would have allowed the goal because there's nothing Sanchez could have done about it.
But I mean, in the rule of the game, that doesn't matter. I mean, I agree with you. I'm not saying that like it was a Diego Maradona, hand of God. And it wouldn't have mattered anyway. Arsenal was the better side. They were going to score again at some point. It would not have changed the outcome of the game, but.
And
so
I think
we're kind of splitting hairs here, but I don't think the goal should have been allowed.
I think you mean the Jack Kelly high school handball soccer goal, because Diego Maradona is only half as good at scoring with his hands as I am.
That's a classic story. That should be a fable.
Yeah, but we'll save that for another time. I do digress. Arsenal, of course, now in third place, even on points with Tottenham hotshot after they lost 2-0 to Liverpool this week. Chelsea... We'll get to the Chelsea game in a moment. Of course, still 10 points clear of both clubs and 60 points in first place. But we'll move right along. Manchester United 2, Watford 0. The Red Devils came out and kind of just battered the Hornets right from the get-go. Goals from Juan Mata and Anthony Martial were too much for the men from London on their trip to Manchester. Reed, what do you make of Manchester United's 16-match unbeaten streak? Yes, they're on a great run of form. At the same time, they're still in sixth place and have not moved.
I think it was an instance in which they were kind of barely in sixth place before this mad run came, and they've kind of been the points they needed to solidify it. I think they're wrongly praised and wrongly criticized. I think some people criticize them for not gaining in the table like you, and I think most other pundits overly praise them for getting results that they should get.
Just to clarify, I'm a pundit?
I thought isn't it your Twitter bio,
yeah.
Right? Yeah, hold on. Let me bring up the.
No, it just says host.
It used to say pundit.
It did at one point say pundit. This is true. This is true, but it was like bona fide pundit or something. And carry on.
Jack, I have no time for your alternative facts right now, okay? Just don't come to me like that.
Sean Spicer.
Spicy. Okay. No, but back to the football. This isn't an SNL podcast. It's a soccer podcast. Dang it all. The amount of effort I go to not have that little E next to our podcast is extreme. Yeah, no, I think they've been playing well. I think when you spend millions and millions and millions of dollars, you beat Watford 2-0 at home. No disrespect to Watford. They're a club with a very good family club and all that, but I don't think they've gotten any particularly interesting results for the amount of money that's on that pitch.
Yeah, I think Manchester United were, a bit of an instance of people were frustrated and they had a new manager, and it was more of let's spend the money because we have the money to spend it rather than carefully calculated, as Pogba has been less than impressive so far. Anyways, though, Manchester United is kind of irrelevant, but not really as the next 5 teams, so we'll go second to 6th here, are only separated by 2 points from one another. Of course, Manchester United sitting on 48 points, Manchester United on 48, City and Liverpool at 49, then Arsenal and Spurs at 50, as we mentioned earlier. We'll run through a couple of games quickly here because who cares about them? We certainly don't. Middlesbrough and Everton played to a rousing 0-0 draw because you have the junior varsity football club of Everton from Merseyside. Yes, that is a direct shot at Eric Van Tubergen. I hope he's listening. And Middlesbrough, who I sometimes forget are a football club. Stoke City downs Crystal Palace 1-0. Things continue to get worse for Big Sam as they just can't score goals. Southampton obliterated Sunderland at the stadium of late 4-0. This was a little bit unexpected. Sunderland had been on a good run of form, but...
No, hold on. Yeah, Jack, this is a match that I care about, and I really liked. I thought it was really good.
Yeah, I think Gabbiadini is definitely cementing himself as a Premier League striker so far.
Oh, yeah, he ever since that goal against West Ham, I've been kind of keeping an eye out for him. It's just that, everyone's been saying Southampton need a player that can finish off the chances that they create, because they create a ridiculous amount of chances. It's just the way they set up. And it finally seems like they have someone who can be a spearhead to this attack. And I think they are a club that you need to watch. They're going to fly up the table towards the latter half of the season. If they can solidify this team in the summer and not lose too many players, get Van Dijk back and keep Van Dijk, you really got to keep an eye out for them for next season. They're going to be flying.
Yeah, I'll echo what Reed said. I think this season, any sort of contention for a European spot is out of the question. But looking at the next season, I think outside of the top 6, they are perhaps the best position if they can keep Virgil van Dijk. I think that's the big question, and they might not be able to. I think they're the best positioned team to crash the party for a Europa League spot, just because they've been there before in recent memory. They have that experience, but also I think this is a side that, like Reed said, does have the offensive firepower to hang around. And I wasn't completely sold on the Gabbiadini signing, but man, he's been impressive.
Yeah, I mean, bagged 2 more in this one. Of course, that's 3 and 2 now for the Italian striker. Good bit of business, I think. Who is managing? I can't think of his name. He's Spanish. What is Southampton's manager's name these days?
Reed.
It doesn't matter.
This is embarrassing. It's safe to say we're all tired.
Yes, it was a long weekend, and we'll leave the words at long because we are a family-friendly show. But we will move along, and we will get some hack pundit information out of Mr. Reed Hammond now. The Battle of the West was the farthest thing from your predictions during the midweek, and I would like your take, because when the ball hits the net, and it's not from Payet, it's Lanzini, and the Argentinian striker played very well in this match, but in typical Hammers fashion, couldn't hold on to get all 3 points. Tell me a little bit about this game.
Ain't nobody like Lanzini. Makes me happy. Plays a West Ham. Wait, ain't nobody like Lanzini. Makes me happy. Plays a West Ham. Wait. Yeah, no. You really gotta. Oh man, there were 4 or 5. As hot as our hot takes were, those refereeing decisions might have been hotter. Both of the West Brom goals, there's an argument to be made that they came off of the back of either a no call or a poor call. The first goal came, Mark Noble won the ball off, I think it was Salman Rondon, played it back to Faguli. Faguli gets smacked from behind. That's a foul most of the time. It just wasn't called with the run of play. And then they go on to score a fairly good, well-taken goal. And then there was that really weird situation where I think it was Michael Dawson, if I'm not mistaken, was injured and on the ground. And someone played a ball to the end of it, and he scored. And I think the initial decision was ruling Antonio offside or like for influencing the keeper. But like that's kind of a poor call. And in post-match interview, he said he asked the linesman, he asked the assistant referee, what was the call for that? What was the issue there? And he said he was offside. And then Slaven Bilic asked that assistant referee who was offside, to which he retorted, no, it was a foul. And then Slaven left because he didn't want to go to the stands yet. A lot of very controversial decision-making. The team itself, this was one of the better games that they played, one of the better matches that we've seen all season. They played great. They really looked like they're coming together, especially a team that didn't have a recognizable striker on the pitch. Because Andy Carroll had a precautionary game off just because he's had a little bit of a groin injury.
He has glass bones.
Weeks. Yeah, I think him and Jack Wilshere, drink the same water or something like that. But very controversial game. A lot of rotten luck, a lot of controversial decision making. And it's going to be interesting to see who's in the tactical area next match because Slaven Bilic's assistant got sent to the stands after the Faguli goal was disallowed, and Slaven Bilic was sent to the West Brom's equalizer in the 94th because a throw-in was given to the wrong team. It was clearly a West Ham throw-in, gave it to West Brom. They won a corner off the result of that and scored off the corner, and he was so upset he broke the TV microphone, and the assistant referee, the fourth official, sent him to the stands. So with a bench made up of almost entirely Croatians and Julian Dix, it's going to be interesting to see who is in the dugout next match.
Well, it was certainly an eventful one at the at London Stadium, the artist formerly known as the Olympic Stadium. But we'll move along to Saturday's headliner, if you will. And all I have to say about this match is money, 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 money. Andrew, do tell me what happened, because a terrible Liverpool team managed to down a high-flying Tottenham Hotspur team 2-0, and it does seem that Sadio Mane will never be walking alone because they love him there in Liverpool.
I mean, I don't think it's necessarily fair to say Liverpool's terrible. They tactically match up very well against Spurs because they play a very aggressive press. Spurs like to kind of keep the ball around midfield, sort of even almost in their zone. And Liverpool just plays such a high press that they're able to create turnovers and create chaos. Mane was excellent. I think this game really proved how vital Danny Rose is and showed that he really is the best left back in England. Maybe one of the best left backs in all of Europe. Ben Davies was totally outmatched by Sadio Mane, who is a very good player, but also the kind of guy that you would expect Danny Rose normally to neutralize. I think if they have Rose, if they have John Vertonghen, this is a different match. A lot of Spurs fans are acting as if the sky is falling. And while it was a disappointing match, to be sure, to kind of fold as they did, never really looked like they were going to get back in it after they conceded that second goal. But you're going to have these matches where you just look like total crap. And while it's unfortunate it came against Liverpool on a weekend when Chelsea relatively stumbled, it's going to happen. And Spurs are going to look to get healthy. They have a little bit of an easier run of games coming up. They're going to just have to figure out how to make the most of their chances, because the past 3 games they have scored 0 goals from the run of play. And, teams are going to look to what Sunderland did and what Borough did as a strategy of how to play them. So they have to be able to unlock those teams, and then they have to really step it up for the North London derby and against Manchester United, who are really the only quality teams that we have left to play. So definitely still a side I think that can finish second. Definitely a side that has been on aggregate better than Liverpool, even though Liverpool have certainly outplayed us in the 2 games we've this season.
I would agree on the aggregate performance there.
Yeah, I mean, no one would look at our 2 matches. Spurs, I think, did well to get a draw the first time around. I mean, they were the same tactical problems they had on Saturday. They had in that first match as well, which is why it was a little disappointing that Mauricio Pochettino didn't come out with something different. Like, what Liverpool are going to do when you play them. You know what kind of tactics they're going to bring in. So you have to be ready to counter that. So it was a little frustrating. At the same time, I think Spurs are still in a good position to certainly get Champions League qualification. Probably finish, top 2. Not probably, but I think that they're still. I'd be more comfortable as a Spurs fan than as an Arsenal, Liverpool, or Manchester United fan.
Yeah, just given the schedule and the form. I do have one question, though. I guess 2 questions. Of course, Son did have that chance 25 or 26 minutes in where Mignolet actually came up with a big save. So I guess we'll start here. Do you think if he puts that ball in the back of the net, this game ends in a different result than just Spurs dropping all 3 points?
Yeah, I mean, I think it could have provided a bit of a spark, because they weren't poor in the second half per se. They just never really... you watch the second half, there was never any point where you were like, oh, yeah, Spurs are going to get a goal, or Spurs are going to get 2 goals. And if Son can put that away, then that could provide, at least a glimmer of hope. And kind of like at the Etihad, when, they responded a little bit better. They got that goal that really gave them the confidence to go forward and get another one, and then at least get a result out of the game. So... But, fair play to Mignolet. He finally decided to have a good game against us, of course.
And then I guess my second question would be, and I know they're not the same, but these are professional footballers we're talking about. Would you have liked to see Pochettino play Kyle Walker on the left, knowing that Mane would be running at him from that side more specifically? I know by trade he is technically a right back, but he is more than capable of playing on the other side.
No, I mean, I don't think that would have solved anything. I think you can just kind of take your punches with having Danny Rose out. And Ben Davies, I mean, to be fair, would be starting as left back for 75% of Premier League teams.
That's true. But just on pace alone, I mean, Walker is quite a bit quicker than Davies is, and we know how speedy Mane is.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, there's been some talk of trying to deputize either Moussa Sissoko or even George Kevin Nkoudou at left back, which seems strange, but I mean, just to add a little bit more pace, because Ben Davies he's played center back for the Wales national team. You almost would rather see him at center back than at left back. So, I mean, that's something, if Rose, he has a setback in terms of injury that you might look at, you can't just pin the blame on Ben Davies, though. I mean, the entire attacking band, Christian Eriksen especially, had an off day. I mean, Sadio Mane ran rampant, but it's not like the rest of the side was firing on all cylinders either.
Yeah, and Jack,
that's a fair evaluation.
Not everybody can be Antonio. You can't really ask that much from Kyle Walker. They kind of just have the one thing, whereas Antonio, actually, like, this happens, trains in the goal, once a week. He stays after with Randolph and the goalkeeping coach, and they give him pointers. Humble break. Antonio's the most versatile player in the world. But secondly, I just wanted to pip in that I think Nkudu would be a great fill-in to at least train behind Danny Rose and get some influence, like to be a little bit of a tutoring situation, and Nkudu to start working in it left back, just because he's a very talented, very pacey young player. And I think at this point in his career, he really just needs minutes on the pitch, regardless if that's in defensive duties or in his preferred attack.
I actually agree with that. I think that if you're going to use wing backs, it's actually not a terrible idea to try out some of these guys back there. I think Sissoko actually would be a decent left back as well. And he's gotten a lot of hate from pretty much everyone for his vastly inflated transfer fee. But he's actually been solid for Spurs. And I think that it might be something worth considering on the training pitch. You know, you're playing Liverpool. You don't want to get cute and start, throwing these guys in when they've had no experience doing so. But it's something to consider, and they have a couple cup games coming up. So, if you want to experiment, now's the time.
Yeah. Well, let us forge on to today's games. Of course, the early one, if you were a viewer here in North America, kicking off at 7:30 Central Time here in the States. Burnley won, Chelsea won at Turf Moor. I almost feel, for what I saw of this game, because for whatever reason I was up obscenely early, this feels like 2 points dropped for Burnley, not 2 points dropped for Chelsea. They
Burnley
really came and gave it to them.
It was remarkable, really. I mean, Burnley were the better side.
Through and through, they just gave it to them. I know, obviously, Burnley did have to equalize after going down to a very early Pedro goal, but these Burnley, you can make the argument Chelsea with 70% of the ball, but I mean, it wasn't anything incredible. Burnley generated more shots on goal. They defended extremely well, very compact. There was no space in the midfield for Chelsea to try to move the ball around. And that Robbie Brady free kick was sublime. It was the first time somebody had scored a free kick goal against Chelsea since 2013. It was unreal. So I guess, Reed, what do you think about the team forging on? I mean, we had talked about how Burnley were as likely as any team to nick points off of them, but did you expect it to be in such a almost dominant fashion?
Oh, yeah. One of the triumvirate right here was bigging up Burnley for how good their home form was. I can't say that I was looking at the match reports expecting them to get a point, but something about Burnley at home, like Turf Moor, is just a freaking fortress. That's the only place they can play football. And as I was saying last week, if they can transition this level of play to their away form, they are one of teams in the Premier League. They are a very good, very cohesive side, and beat Chelsea. Is that it's not beating them at their own game, perhaps per se. You have to have 11 men on the pitch who all have one direction and are all working very hard to do it.
Yeah, I mean, almost if they could formulate some kind of result like this, where they don't go to the Emirates, or they don't go to Old Trafford and just get battered. Not to say that they got battered this season at the Emirates, but in years past they have not fared well. They could almost, it could be one of those. Are they going to be a Leicester City and actually stir the pot a little bit? Andrew, anything that you want to add about this match?
I mean, Burnley did quite well, and I think getting to a point I made a couple weeks back, Chelsea is going to have a problem now where they play some plucky, we'll use another one of my favorite words, plucky sides. And now they have a target in their back, right? Because you look at a team like Burnley, they're not going to make Europe. They're not going to get relegated either. So this is their big game. And, people were predicting Burnley to go down this year. They won the championship last year, good on them. But people thought that, people certainly didn't predict Palace or Leicester to be in a relegation fight. They thought Burnley would. So I just want to say congratulations to the Clarets on proving the haters wrong. I think they can be maybe not an exciting side, but a side with some room for growth throughout the rest of this year if they can figure out how to play away from Turf Moor.
I agree. I think Burnley will be a team with something to say. But let us go to the final match of the weekend proper. Of course, we do have a Monday night game tomorrow, and we'll get to that in just a minute. Swansea City 2, Leicester City 0. The Foxes did not enjoy their trip to Wales. This first Swansea goal from Mawson, absolutely sublime from the center back. His third goal in the last 6 games for the Swans. I mean, it is picturesque. Draw it up on the training ground. What you want. Sigurdsson with the ball in. Llorente knocks it down, gets headed back across, and then Mawson, I don't know if he could have caught it cleaner with another 100 tries. Absolutely just blasted this ball right past Kasper Schmeichel. He had absolutely no chance. And then, of course, Martin Olsen, kind of putting the game to bed 2 minutes into the second half, because if Leicester had anything left in the tank for the second half, they just went flat as soon as the Swans put the ball in the back of the net once again. So, I mean, this is a huge result for Swansea. Obviously, they were tied on points with Leicester coming into the weekend, but now have projected themselves up to 15th place, 4 points clear of the drop zone, which is obviously big. And Leicester just continues to fall down to 17th, just 1 point clear of taking the drop. And it's almost unreal that we're talking about a reigning champion here. Andrew, what is the reason for these Leicester struggles, and how has Clement gotten Swansea some results lately? They seem like a brand new team.
Well, I mean, I feel for Bob Bradley, but maybe it was Bob Bradley. Paul Clement has done very well. I think that if he can keep Swans up, you look at Manager of the Year. I mean, it's not so much that they've been anything special, but they were just so crap and almost destined to go down without a whimper before he came aboard. There's some pitfalls left. They kind of have to make some hay against Hull and Borough and Sunderland in the run-in, but it's good to see guys like Llorente starting to kind of fulfill their potential. I'm a big supporter of Sigurdsson. I think he's always been doing his part, but there's some talent on Swans. Good to see that they've come through. Leicester, you kind of wonder if they went too big too fast with some of these signings, because there's really no reason that guys like Slimani, Musa, should be as poor as they are. But you dumped Conte. You don't have that cohesion that they had last year. Last year there was that chemistry, that bond, where whether it was Jamie Vardy nicking a goal or whatever, when they stepped on the pitch, they played as one and they believed they could win. And that belief is just gone this year for whatever reason. And it might be in their best interest to get knocked out of the Champions League as soon as humanly possible, because part of me wonders if some of that energy was diverted towards Europe. And they did well in Europe, but I think while in doing so, they've never done this before. They kind of lost sight of the league, and you wonder if that'll come back to bite them in the arse on the last day. Yeah,
they just don't have what they had. I mean, you can make the case for Europe. It is only 6 matches, though. I mean, it is a little bit of a boost to the schedule in terms of having to travel, but I think it's not that much.
But it's not just that. It's match preparation and training, and now and scouting, and just kind of all this resources that a club of Leicester sides did not have to worry about appropriating. And now they're fighting on 2 fronts, not just with the players, but with the whole operation now has to prepare for Europe as well. So I mean, schedule wise, I don't think it's necessarily the fatigue. I think it's just their whole apparatus might have been overwhelmed by the addition of having to add on this extra responsibility.
Yeah.
If that makes sense, Jack.
No, I know exactly what you mean. But let us digress. Don't worry, Reed. We have not forgotten about you. I do have a question for you now. Tomorrow night's match in England, the Monday Night Football game, if you will. Mr. Hammond, in 10 words or less, please summarize the game that we are about to see between Bournemouth and Manchester City. Manchester City with a bit of a long trip down to the South Coast.
Eddie Howe's head on a plate. Gabby goal with 6.
There you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Manchester City 6, Bournemouth 0. You heard it here first. On the contrary, I actually do like the Cherries to nick a few points in this one. But we digress for part 1. Make sure you stick around for the second half of the show today, guys. We have another installment of Ball is Life, where we are going to take a look at the politics of global soccer. So stick around, guys. We will be right back.
You want to know something crazy?
You made those 10 words up just on the fly.
Yeah, that's pretty good, right?
That's pretty good.
No, you want to know something crazy though? Monaco will probably win Liga.
I know, that'd be
They
great.
look so fucking good.
Fuck
Yeah.
PSG.
They
They're
just
gonna lose
scored
other
so much.
players this summer, though.
Honestly, I don't think they will. I think people say that, but I don't think they will.
I mean,
Because,
I
like,
think Lamar is gone and Bernardo's still.
Yeah. Why would they leave? Here, listen to this out real quick. Because Monaco plucked them out of relative obscurity, brought them to the French Riviera, and will pay them essentially tax-free as much as they could possibly want. Like, when you're a young player winning a league, playing in the Champions League, and playing in every week, I feel like you don't leave.
living in paradise.
Paradise.
I'm not saying
Fucking
I wouldn't take
bitches.
that deal. I think Monaco, their technical director said as much that Lamar was probably gone this summer.
Yeah, that's true. And a draw for young footballers, especially if you have the potential, like, you know, it's everybody's dream to play for the Barcelona or the Manchester United, or even even a club like Arsenal or Spurs compared to Monaco does have a higher level of prestige about it.
Although, RIP Monaco being Spurs in the Champions League.
Yeah, I mean, flukes happen.
That's not a bad loss now that, feel a little better about that game.
Yeah,
I know. At the
'cause
time, though,
it's
people
kind of
were
a
like,
shock
"What
when
the
it
fuck
happened.
is happening?"
Yeah.
Wembley was not kind to Spurs. I don't know if they should want to play there full time the next 2 years.
Yeah, we should just rent out
Yeah, it's
MK
gonna be
Dons
rough.
Stadium.
You could get a jumping. It's bigger. It's bigger than. Is it bigger than the lane or smaller than the lane? It's smaller than the lane, right?
Yeah.
Which one? MK Dons Stadium? Oh, it's much smaller.
Oh, you could get a jumping. That'd be great. Okay. Anyways, Andrew, bring us back whenever you are ready for. What are we talking about today?
Why Israel is in UEFA.
Yeah,
Hashtag Zionist.
show is yours. I mean, we can take as much time as you want, but that's a bigger file for Reed to download and edit. So
Okay. I'm going to bring it back in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the second part of the show. This is Andrew Ball coming at you with the 5th week of a segment that we are calling Ball is Life, a look into the politics of global soccer. And this week, we will be taking a look at something different, a look at why Israel plays in UEFA. And this is something that when I first started watching soccer blew my mind to no end. Why is Israel, which is thousands of miles from Paris, London, or Milan, quote unquote, European? And the answer is, perhaps not unsurprisingly, if you know anything about Middle Eastern politics, political. So Israel actually was a member of the Asian Football Confederation, which includes most of its neighbors in the Middle East, Jordan, Saudi Arabia, etc. Its tenure in the AFC stretched from 1954 to 1974 and was turbulent, to say the least. Many predominantly Muslim countries refused to play Israel in the 1958 World Cup qualifiers, resulting in the bizarre spectacle of Israel qualifying for the World Cup without playing a single match. FIFA, not wanting its showcase tournament to suffer the embarrassment of having such a team qualify, arranged a two-legged match with Wales. Wales won that 4-0 on aggregate, and that was the only time that they've ever appeared in a World Cup, meaning that the Welsh should probably send a fruit basket or two to the Gulf states. In 1964, Israel actually hosted the AFC Asian Cup, which is the Asian Continental Championship, like the Euros. The Blue and Whites won the tournament, marking their only major trophy ever in their footballing history. But 11 of the 16 teams pulled out of the competition for political reasons, meaning that Israel managed to lift the cup after beating the football powerhouses that are South Korea, India, and Hong Kong. Israel actually appeared in its only World Cup in 1970, but soon after was expelled from the AFC in 1974 and spent the better part of the next 2 decades in exile. They played in both UEFA and Oceania World Cup qualifiers. That must have been a fun trip, the Oceania qualifiers to Tahiti in New Zealand for them. Before they finally joined UEFA in 1992, after their domestic clubs began increasingly playing in European competitions. Now, Israel's national team's presence in UEFA has still caused a bunch of controversy. In 2012, a pro-Palestine group backed by several Premier League players submitted a petition to UEFA asking the organization to move the 2013 Under-21 European Championships from the country. One of those players, Frederick Kanute, said that he signed the letter, quote, as a gesture of solidarity with an occupied people, quote, of course, referring to Israel's occupation of Gaza and the West Bank. Israeli clubs, domestic clubs have often met protests from fan groups and even players when they've competed in European competitions. In September, Dundalk FC fans held a peaceful protest ahead of their Europa League clash with Maccabi Tel Aviv. And then a rather actually famous incident because it occurred shortly before he was sold to Chelsea, who is owned by a Jew. Mohamed Salah created a firestorm when he declined to shake hands with Maccabi players while he was playing for Basel. A 2014 Champions League qualifier. And then on the return leg in Israel, Salah said that, quote, in my thoughts, I'm going to play in Palestine and not Israel, and I'm going to score and win there. The Zionist flag won't be shown in the Champions League, end quote. And despite the highly politicized nature of his comments, shall we say, Salah actually did both those things, and Basel advanced in the group stages. Now, Israel's presence in a conference which is geographically strange is not unusual. Kazakhstan also plays in UEFA, despite briefly playing in the AFC after the fall of the Soviet Union, which is an arguably more geographically sensible confederation. Australia, in recent years, has bolted from Oceania to play in the AFC, and one of the reasons they actually gave in doing so was Israel's presence in UEFA. But none of these quandaries really come with the political baggage that Israel's does. Australia left Oceania because the quality of play, shockingly, when you play the Solomon Islands and Fiji, is not particularly high. But Israel is pretty much purely political, which is an interesting tidbit that I would have liked to know back when I started following soccer. And as always, we would love to hear what you think about Ball's life. Tweet us your thoughts on the segment at point2 with the numeral 2 spot. And feel free to suggest topics for future episodes. We'd love to hear what you think. In the meantime, I'll throw it over to you boys. What do you make of this? Israel being in UEFA? Am I the only one who has ever wondered about why the hell this is a thing?
No, I do know what you mean. Often I found it quite strange, given that even just from a cultural language standpoint, Israel has nothing to do with Europe in a way. Things are so different. I do think obviously it is very politically charged. We'll kind of stay out of the conflict that is most commonly associated with Israel because we are a football podcast. But you wonder if it's for the better or if it's for the worse. Obviously, it avoids a lot of off the pitch and outside surrounding the pitch conflict in a way, but almost football is often a way for people to get over differences like this. Of course, we just saw, professional football return to Aleppo in the past week in Syria, and that was an awfully encouraging sign, and it gave a lot of people in the city hope. So I think I think it's kind of a double-edged sword. I do like the Australia move to the Asian Football Federation because, playing in Oceania just doesn't get it done when your biggest competition is Fiji. Also, Western City Wanderers, my favorite A-League team, did indeed manage to take home the Asian Champions League, whatever they call it over there. I digress.
I think it's actually really good because if you look at the ultras culture that surrounds a lot of the biggest clubs, and it's very aggressive, and they make some great displays, but they also do some slightly questionable things. There's similar to the hooliganism we saw in England in the 80s, where a lot of it's politically backed, politically charged actions that football fans have been doing lately. And regardless of your politics, I think it's always a shame when football turns to violence, which it has done in the last couple of weeks in Israel. But I think it's just better just to avoid it. I think that's the smart move.
That's a good point. And one thing that I actually forgot to mention in the segment I was going to is it is not uncommon for countries with rather turbulent pasts to be in the same federation. Looking at Azerbaijan and Armenia, Russia and Ukraine, Russia having invaded Ukraine, that's a little awkward. And usually the way around it is they just, in group stages of competitions, especially helps when one or both of the two countries are not particularly competitive. They just make sure they're not in the same pot, so they couldn't be in the same group. But it is, I think we all are in agreement that it is unfortunate when sport turns political, and especially when that results in violence and loss of life.
Yeah, I mean, you make the point where, as often as it isn't, which is far too often, football is supposed to be fun, and, violence is not fun, and avoiding I guess, I mean, not that you always should avoid conflict, but, there's, violent conflict is nothing that you want to encourage, especially in the game of football.
Playing a game where there's going to be bad stuff going down is not a good idea.
Yeah, it's like when you see a Boca versus River Plate game and they're pepper spraying the players, on the backs of what color they're wearing. I mean, not completely similar, but those kinds of things seem to be inevitable, and it's almost like, well, is it even worth playing the match anymore? So I do think that's interesting. Of course, always very educational. Reed, is there anything else that you would like to add on, or you, Andrew, that you would like to add on to your own segment?
I just wanted to point out that Olympique Marseille lost 3-2 today to FC Nantes.
Not a good loss.
Why is that significant, Reed?
No reason.
We have Payet. Dimitri Payet. I just don't think you understand. Well, anyways, Point to the Spot did formerly have my entirely Bonkers friend named Reed Hammond. He has since been sold. Everything you heard today, of course, was pre-recorded for the sake of covering up our asses. Andrew and I don't want to look bad with our our listeners, rather.
I hear Reed is enjoying a certain port city in southern France.
Yes, he has been shipped off to join his beloved Dimitri Payet. Of course, our little conclusion here is obviously going to have been a audio clip pulled from another episode. Of course, make sure that you are following us all on Twitter. Reed, where can they find you on the social media?
At that one kid Reed.
Yes, of course. And Andrew, where can they find you?
At Andrew Ball, BAHL.
Yes, make sure you're following Andrew to stay up to date on his future presidential campaign. You can donate now at andrewball.vote. Of course, I am Jack Kelly. You can
money, so please.
You can follow me on Twitter at actual Jack Kelly. I am indeed actually Jack Kelly. And of course, don't forget to follow the show at Point to the Spot with the number 2. We always love to hear what you all have to say. We are always looking for suggestions on what you would like our 3 brilliant football minds to be talking about. Don't forget to follow our partners AmericanEPLthoughts.com. You can find them on Twitter at AmericanEPL. And of course, you can check out their website to stay up to date with, a distinctly unique American perspective of the Premier League at AmericanEPLthoughts.com. For now, that is all we have for you. Thank you for listening. We hope you had a great weekend. And until Wednesday, on the back of an exciting Arsenal victory over Bayern Munich, take care, and we will see you then.
Okay, cool.
That
Sweet.
was,
You want the lowdown on how to do this?
Yeah, I do.
So you got all those files already, right? Or you can get access to them?
What do you mean?
They're in that Google Drive.
Oh, okay.
Just like,
What are you doing?
I'll send. I have a sock monkey that you wind up and then a jumps rope. It's a very long running joke with my uncle.
Okey-doke.
I will send you the link to the video when it's done processing. When you do that, just go to clipconverter.cc,
Yeah.
copy the link, put it into Clip Converter, hit go, download it at like standard quality, so it's not a bajillion megabytes, and then you can just put the MP3 file that you get into Audacity and do all the mixing and stuff in there. Do you know how to use Audacity?
Yeah.
It's a learning curve. It's really easy.
Jack, how do I? Oh, never mind.
Are you to do the MP3 exporting thing? It's really easy. I believe Andrew did do it. Andrew, did you do it?
Yes.
Yeah. So you just just Google like MP3 plugin Audacity, and it'll come up and give you step-by-step instructions.
It'll even prompt you when you go to, if you don't have it, when you try to export as an MP3, it'll be like, you don't have this, but you need it to export. Do you want to get it? And then just hit yeah, and it'll download.
Yeah. So it's like really simple. It's like 4 clicks.
Okay, Andrew, you know what this means?
Oh shit! I should stop this.